The motorcycle industry is changing. I'm sure a lot of you have already heard about the news that the Yamaha R1 is now being discontinued after 20 years. This motorcycle being one of the top in its class is being discontinued after 2025. And in its place, it's probably looking like a 3-cylinder R9 is coming around the corner instead. But this is yet another casualty of EU regulations, and I mean, there's a debate to be had about why this is such an issue for councils, governments. Right, bikes don't produce that many emissions to begin with. The population of motorcyclists is significantly lower than that of any other vehicle that is used on the roads. Yet, for some reason, bikes are getting hit just as hard, if not harder, than any other transportation in the industry. And so, we've kind of got to... we've kind of got to discuss, but there's no discussion to be had here. This is happening. And I suppose the question we should be asking ourselves is this now going to be the way forward? How much more are engineers going to be able to develop bikes that fit in with stricter and stricter regulations? And then imagine, like, I don't know, your favorite car in the world, a Lamborghini. Imagine a Lamborghini Murcielago or a Lamborghini Aventador, whatever they're manufacturing today, the top of the line Lambo. And then imagine that EU regulations and EU rules are stopping those cars from being manufactured. Imagine any performance vehicle, for that matter, any performance cars get discontinued because they simply can't fit within European emission standards. Do you know how sad that will be? What kind of world we'll live in at that point? It's just really not one of those things that I can bear thinking about, to be honest. Because, yeah, I am a motorcycle enthusiast, as all of you know. I'm also a bit of a car nut as well. I enjoy my cars, and I like my cars. And the fact that this is happening to bikes, the fact that this is happening to motorcycles, well, you've got to be thinking it's just around the corner for cars, right? Gotta be. And so it's not just the motorcycle industry. I mean, it's the performance industry as a whole. But these bikes are representative of those supercars. You know, they are the motorcycle equivalent of those supercars. Those cars that are dream cars. These are dream bikes for so many people. And they are attainable bikes. Some people want to be able to have that option of buying a new one. You know, it's not... I like to encourage people to buy used simply because you get a lot more bang for your buck and all that stuff. That's something we've discussed in other videos. Go and check them out. It's really difficult to describe the way I'm feeling right now because in one breath, the amount of bikes that have been discontinued over the last 4 years is absolutely ridiculous. Okay, some of them will come back for this year, but how long have they got left? How long are these manufacturers going to keep on investing more and more R&D, pushing up the prices of these bikes just because they have to fit in with emissions regulations? So there's that kind of point of view. There's another point of view, another question that might be asked here. Is this a good thing? Not for, I mean, yeah, of course, from an environmental point of view, I say an environmental point of view, how many emissions do you think are created by motorcycles every year? It's going to be like 1%, maybe even less than that, you know? It's going to be a stupidly low amount. But anyway, let's just say that. Okay, so it's for emissions, fine. But do you think that engineers are going to use these rules and regulations to find other ways of bringing these kinds of motorcycles or performance-oriented motorcycles, top-of-the-line motorcycles, to new heights? Do you think that it will inspire some kind of innovation? I don't know, is my honest answer. And I don't know where it's going to end. It might end with all performance bikes, all performance cars simply getting discontinued, no longer being sold, and instead we all have to be driving and riding piddly things, you know? Who knows? But it's getting harder and harder, and these emissions rules, these emissions regulations seem to be coming in quicker and quicker as well. It's like, before you know it, you've lost another motorcycle. Next year, it's going to be another 2 bikes, another 3 bikes. Let's have a little look at this visor down article that was published in towards the end of February, so just over a month ago. And let's see what these guys have to say. Does Yamaha's decision to discontinue the R1 after 2025 sound the death for superbikes? As bizarre as that might sound, especially for those brought up on and in awe of Blades, Gixxers, R1s and the like, it may well also be the truth. Let's face some harsh facts. Suzuki Europe long ago binned its entire Gixxer family, 600, 750, and in 2022 it short-lived Gixxer 1000, partly because they didn't get through the prevailing EU regulations, but mostly because they were selling so few it wasn't economic to re-engineer them. And this is one of my big issues here. This is one of my biggest concerns behind EU regulations. Yamaha is now doing the same, although this time the R1 won't be developed beyond the current EU 5+ deadline, which is 2025. Any money on Kawasaki being next? We shouldn't really be surprised, of course. The same path was travelled by Supersport 600s in the early noughties, from which the 90s best-selling bikes managed to evolve themselves into extinction by chasing narrow-focused extreme track success to such a degree that they became useless on the road. I love my 600s in my 30s and in the 1990s, but after the 1999 R6, never quite saw the point of them. I rode a ZX6R around Stoke in 2013 and pondered how ridiculous it was to be looking down through the screen at its clocks. I rode a CBR 600RR soon, and after a hefty 6'3" of me could barely fit on it. For me, recent superbikes, wonder machines though they are equally irrelevant. I also rode a Honda Fireblade SB2 and M1000RR on the road recently. Waste of time. I spent half of it fearing for my license and the other half feeling a fraud. 100 mile an hour in second gear? Yeah, right. Now, I don't know who wrote this article, but they're very damning of sport bikes in this article, and I don't think it's the right attitude. If there's one thing that we know about these hyper sport bikes, super sport bikes, any development that goes into those motorcycles more often than not starts trickling down into the more budget oriented motorcycles. So even though a lot of these bikes might seem ineffective, useless for everyday roads, there still is a benefit to developing them. Why there are some people that still don't realize this is beyond me. These are the top of the line, most innovative motorcycles that these companies can make. We need these overbuilt machines, these over-engineered machines in some cases, to innovate the cheaper motorcycles. Where would we be if these bikes didn't have TFT dashes? We wouldn't have TFT dashes today. You know what I mean? It's just things like that. Quick shifters. We wouldn't have quick shifters either. There are so many things that we take for granted these days. Even things like ABS, you know? Ridiculously, like, things that we take so for granted these days on modern day motorcycles all came from these top of the line bikes that, I don't know, for some reason this visor down writer doesn't seem to appreciate. Anyway, which is probably why they aren't selling, or rather why most of them aren't. BMW apparently does quite well out of its S1000RR, as does Aprilia with its RSV4, and Ducati's Panigale V4 sales actually went up 22% in the first 3 quarters of 2023. But they are true Exotica dream machines with brand cash to back it up. By all accounts, Yamaha, Honda, Kawasaki combined don't come anywhere close. That's totally not true. That's absolutely not true. What a ridiculous statement to make. Anyway, this leads me on to my biggest worry of all, superbike racing. Okay, so this is talking about racing here, but this is a very damning report on these big bikes, on these classic elite level motorcycles. I mean, sales of these bikes might be going down because of how expensive they're getting. It might not necessarily be because no one wants them, it's because no one can afford to buy them. And with regard to the S1000RR and the Panigale V4 and the RS V4, those bikes are on another level of expensive. They're 25 grand at least. And I mean, Honda is obviously trying to break into that market with their Fireblade SP. That's 25, 26, 28 grand, you know. And it's for those richer folks. That's who these bikes are marketed for. It's like a luxury item, a luxury brand. But that doesn't mean that none of us want those kinds of bikes. None of us want an R1. And how much of this is being caused by the fact that they have to put in so much engineering time into R&D, so much budget into R&D, that these bikes no longer become viable because they end up being too expensive. Like, okay, no, these superbikes aren't for everyone. Of course they're not. But you can't turn around and say that, oh, so you were a young lad in the 90s, you really enjoyed riding these bikes, and now you don't, so now no one else should, or no one else is interested in riding these bikes. That's totally not true. There are people that live into their riding careers 50, 60 years old that still enjoy riding sport bikes to this day, and they still find them incredibly comfortable. So this article can't speak for every single motorcyclist out there. Yeah, okay, I'm a younger guy, I'm in my 30s, alright, I still have this fascination around sport bikes, but at the same time, it's really nice knowing that there are these elite level motorcycles that are being raced in these leagues that I can buy, that I can ride on UK roads. No, they're not going to be the most practical. No, they're not going to be the most comfortable. Yeah, over 100 mile an hour in second gear. Everyone knows what they're getting themselves into one of these bikes. And as I've proven over X amount of years riding these huge bikes, ZR 1400, ZH2, my ZX9R as well, you could argue that's a ridiculous bike in its own right, that no, you're not going to get your license taken away from you. This is such a stupid idea that people get so worried about these superbikes that they think that immediately after riding them that they're going to get their license taken away from them. They're going to get speeding tickets left, right and centre. No, that's down to you. And this throttle hand, it's up to you how you ride your bikes. And no, you're probably not going to feel like you're able to really let the bike go, but you have the option of taking it to a track instead. And let's be totally honest here, even a 400 parallel twin is plenty fast enough to get you a lot of speeding tickets if you're not careful. It's not just these elite level 1000cc plus motorcycles that have the potential of getting your license taken away from you. It's really sad. It's really sad. But a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel is that these engineers are world class. They know what they're doing, and they will find a way of getting performance that people want out of these kinds of bikes with motorcycles that are cheaper, easier to develop, easier to manufacture, and fit within these EU regulations that are still going to be stupid, crazy fun. But it's going to be another R6, R7 issue. So the logical kind of thing would be R125, R3, R6, R7, and R1. That's not actually the pecking order of Yamaha bikes. It's R125, R3, R7, R6, then R1. And I bet you that the R9 is going to sit underneath the R1, because that is just the way it is. There's going to be a performance cut of the bike. It's going to be, I can't tell you by how much, but horsepower is going to go down significantly. And it's going to have a lot of torque, which I think is going to actually be a hell of a lot of fun for a road bike, but it's not going to be the same experience. It's not going to be one of those high-revving, ridiculously high horsepower top-end bikes that we've been used to having over the last 20 years. No, it won't be the same. And that is the harsh reality But at the same time, we as a community are not big enough to make a difference with this. As awful and as negative as that might sound, we are all at the whims of the manufacturers, we're at the whims of governments. We don't get a choice in this. We don't have a say in any of this. And as much as there are these protest groups, so to speak, these organizations that try to give us a voice, they can't shout loud enough. It's not the car industry where every single person in the world is affected by these regulations. It's more like 5-10% maximum of people around the world that are affected by this. So they don't care. And I'm sure that Yamaha would love to continue manufacturing its R1. It's one of the most well-known motorcycles around. I have no doubt that if these regulations weren't as harsh, that Yamaha would be continuing to make the R1. They'd be continuing to release and sell it. And it's interesting that this article names Kawasaki as Kawasaki might be next. I don't think so. Or Honda either, because these companies are bigger than Yamaha, they're bigger than Suzuki. Remember, Kawasaki is a heavy industries company first and foremost. Their motorcycle industry or their motorcycle division is tiny. It probably doesn't even show up in their account books. It's how tiny that business or that side of the business is for Kawasaki. And Honda, as much as their beginnings were in motorcycles, well, their main business these days is in cars, of course it is. But at the same time, these companies have a lot more money. They have a lot more budget to invest in R&D for these kinds of motorcycles. So they'll probably continue doing it. When we start seeing bikes like the R1 drop off and like the Gixxer 1000 drop off, as it already has, then that just leaves the door open for the companies who are willing to stick it out. So those people that actually want a 1000, a fully fledged, no holes barred, balls to the wall monster of a motorcycle, well, at this point, it's only Honda and Kawasaki that are going to actually have an option out there. And Kawasaki might go a very similar route to Honda in the sense that they might decide to put out a more luxury version of the ZX-10. Or if they are going to drop it off, then their premium superbike is going to be their Ninja H2. That might be the other option that Kawasaki has. I don't know. It remains to be seen. But I really don't think that Honda and Kawasaki are going to give up on these bikes anytime soon, considering that for 2024, they have re-released the ZX6R and the CBR 600RR. We all thought, everyone in the industry, every influencer, everyone that's into bikes, thought that the 600cc class was dead. And I was so happy to see that Kawasaki and Honda brought back their 600 range, their 600 sport bike range. It's just incredible. And I'm so happy as an enthusiast, as someone who loves that section of the market, you know, kind of like a more streetable version of the super sport, the superbike. It makes so much sense. 600s make so much sense for street use. They really do. They make more sense than the 1000s. But I still want to have that option. You know, if I want to have something that's a little bit bigger, a little bit more in your face, I want to have that option of being able to buy these bikes. And that might be the way that it goes going forward. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But I really don't want to see 1000s going anywhere anytime soon. And you never know. They might make a bit of a resurgence in the coming years, depending on... Well, I don't know. Depending on what the engineers can come up with in the background, if they have any other ideas, we might see a ZX9R come back again, you know? That could be an option for Kawasaki, maybe even a ZX8R. I don't know. Or they could even go bigger with less cylinders. So they could do like a twin cylinder ZX11, ZX12. There's loads of options out there that they could look at for these big superbikes going forward, but they won't be the same. Whatever they are, they will not be the same as the 1000s of old that we have right now. They won't be the same. But let me know what you think down in the comment section below, as always. And let me know if this news of the R1, the Gixxer 1000, Gixxer 750 dying how hard that's hit you, and whether or not that's one of those things that you're like, damn, that was one of the best bikes ever made, and they cancelled it because of no choice of their own, no fault of their own. It is to do with EU regulations. It 100% is, because they wouldn't have to worry about the development costs as much. They wouldn't have to keep redesigning the engine every 3 years. You know, they wouldn't have to do that, which is what they've had to have been. Well, it's what they've been doing for the past 10 years now, at least 10 years. It's just ridiculous. But anyway, everyone, thank you for watching this one, and let me know if this is a way forward for engineers to come up with new delights for us motorcycle enthusiasts. You never know, maybe they have something up their sleeves that will just take the market by storm, and a little bit away from electric as well, because no motorcycle rider, serious motorcycle rider, is interested in electric. I've spoken to lots of people, and no one's interested in electric, at least not right now anyway. And but you let me know what you think down in the comments section, as I've mentioned already. Leave that like, hit that subscribe button, and we'll catch you all in the next video. Have a good one.